dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
No!
Jon Stewart just did the unthinkable. He took a flamethrower to Joe Biden and defended Trump in the same breath.
What is this purge about exactly?
Breaking news, the mass firing of government agency watchdogs.
Trump fired at least 17 inspectors general.
And yes, it was every bit as hilarious as it sounds. The famously left-leaning Jon Stewart didn't hold back, torching Biden's final stretch in office and sending the high priests of wokedom into full-on meltdown mode. Welcome to the channel where we cut through the noise and tackle the absurd with a little thing called common sense. There's a lot to break down, so let's skip the fluff and jump straight into the clip.
The bar that's been set up for each to pass, Biden has to not look old and not have a senior moment. Go.
Stewart kicks things off by throwing shade at President Biden's mental sharpness heading into the upcoming CNN-hosted debate. Let's be real, his expectations weren't exactly sky high. All he was hoping for was that Biden could make it through without a full-on senior moment broadcast to the nation. This wasn't about winning hearts or laying out visionary policy. It was about staying lucid enough not to spark fresh concerns about his cognitive health. The bar was practically on the floor, and even that felt like a roll of the dice. So, the real question is, can Biden clear it?
Make sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Well, it's safe to say Biden flunked the tests spectacularly. He struggled to form complete sentences, stumbled over basic points, and delivered more than a few painfully awkward senior moments. At times, it seemed like he wasn't just forgetting the question, but the decade he was in. The look on Trump's face said it all. Part confusion, part amusement, and a whole lot of, "This is my opponent." It was the political equivalent of watching someone wander into the wrong meeting. For a man meant to be leading the free world, Biden came across more like someone who needed a nap, and maybe a nurse, not a second term. Now, let's check out how Stewart reacted.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Honestly, if I were Jon Stewart, I'd be mortified too. This was the Democratic Party's chosen one, their hand-picked challenger to take on Trump. And this is the best they could come up with. It's beyond embarrassing. Let's not forget, this debate didn't happen in a vacuum. It followed months of mounting concern, even from within Biden's own party, about his cognitive decline. There were voices on both sides of the aisle calling for him to step down, to bow out with dignity for the good of the country. But the left wouldn't hear it. They doubled down. And what did America get in return? A live, primetime broadcast of confusion, mumbling, and vacant stares. Stewart looked stunned, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And who could blame him? Biden didn't just underperform. He unraveled. It was a national facepalm moment, and Stewart didn't hesitate to roast him for it.
Okay, a high-pressure situation. A lot of times you can confuse saving Medicare with beating it. I'm sure it's not something that repeated throughout the debate.
Now this part, absolutely hilarious. Because let's be real, no one on that debate stage looked more in need of Medicare than Joe Biden. He wasn't just fumbling policy points. The man looked like he was one bathroom break away from a full-on emergency. At times, it felt like he was scanning the crowd, not for a moderator, but for a nurse with a wheelchair. You half expected someone to walk on stage with a blanket and a glass of warm milk. While Trump came out swinging, Biden looked like he was trying to remember where he left his glasses or what year it was. The mental fog was so dense, it could have been classified as weather. It's one thing to be sharp and just lose the debate, but this was like watching someone try to debate over dial-up in a Wi-Fi world. Painful, and somehow still comically tragic. And yet, Democrats kept insisting this is Biden at his sharpest.
Democrats will say that any criticism like this, especially of Biden, is unfair because you just don't know Biden like they know Biden.
Why? Because the Democrats have mastered the art of political gaslighting. They'll point out every flaw, real or imagined, in anyone outside their camp, while pretending everything on their side is flawless. Sleazy? Absolutely. Over and over, They told the American people that Joe Biden was sharp, focused, and fully capable of leading the nation. In interview after interview, they praised his mental acuity like they were describing Einstein in Aviators. Meanwhile, the rest of us were watching a man who couldn't finish a sentence without veering off into confusion. It wasn't leadership, it was political theater at its most delusional.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They brushed off every legitimate concern as nothing more than right-wing propaganda. Anyone who dared to question Biden's mental fitness was smeared as a conspiracy theorist. Honest dialogue? Not a chance. And the media happily played along, slicing up clips, spinning sound bites, and doing everything they could to shield him from real scrutiny. But after that debate disaster, the cracks are too wide to patch. The truth is out, and no amount of gaslighting can shove it back in the bottle.
I was in almost every meeting with the president, and the president was in front of and on top of it all.
Did anyone film that?
And to think, the person helping sell this entire charade was none other than Kamala Harris, a woman who once had her sights squarely set on taking over the reins of the country. That alone tells you everything you need to know about the current state of Democratic leadership. This wasn't just political spin, it was a coordinated deception, and Kamala was front and center, smiling through every moment of it. We truly dodged a bullet by not putting her in the top seat, because if this is the extent she's willing to go just to protect the party line, imagine the tangle of lies we'd be stuck in right now. The gaslighting would be Olympic level. Let's not forget, this is the same Kamala who once questioned Biden's fitness during the primaries, only to later gush about his clarity and strength without even flinching. That's not leadership. That's opportunism wrapped in rehearsed sincerity. The American people deserve better than power-hungry climbers who will say anything, sell anyone out, and sacrifice truth just to rise another rung on the political ladder.
Friday night massacre.
Late Friday night purge. A chilling purge.
The purge.
Ah! Trump has ushered in the purge!
After losing the election, the Democrats, backed by their loyal media allies, immediately shifted into damage control mode. What followed was a relentless smear campaign against Trump. Every move he made was twisted, exaggerated, or outright fabricated. They pushed blatant lies, distorted facts, and spun wild narratives about his presidency, at one point even absurdly suggesting he had somehow ushered in the purge. Yes, that purge, as if he signed off on nationwide chaos with the stroke of a red pen. It was never about truth. It was about keeping their base fed on a steady stream of outrage. Rather than accept defeat or engage in any honest self-reflection, they chose character assassination. The goal? Bury Trump's accomplishments under a mountain of hysteria and pretend none of it ever happened.
What is this purge about exactly?
Breaking news, the mass firing of government agency watchdogs.
Trump fired at least 17 inspectors general.
Yep, that's what all the hysteria was really about. Trump fired 17 inspectors general, and suddenly the media acted like the four horsemen had been unleashed. You'd think democracy itself was gasping for air, the way they carried on. But let's be honest. Presidents have full authority to make staffing changes, especially when those officials are part of a deeply entrenched bureaucracy resistant to reform. The firings weren't the real issue. What truly set off the media firestorm was that Trump had the audacity to challenge the establishment. And for that, they went into full-blown meltdown mode, spinning routine executive decisions as if they were signs of a collapsing republic.
And just fire these people.
Title V, Section 403 of the U.S. Code, federal law, an inspector general may be removed by the president.
What? So what's the purge?
You see it plain as day. Networks like MSNBC love blowing everything out of proportion, especially when it involves Donald Trump. The moment he says anything even remotely controversial, they slap him with labels like fascist, dictator, or even Hitler, all based on twisted interpretations or out-of-context sound bites. But when Joe Biden makes eerily similar remarks, or worse, suddenly it's just a misunderstanding, a harmless gaffe, or a moment taken out of context. The media bends over backward to excuse, justify, or completely ignore it. It's one of the most blatant displays of media double standards we've seen in decades. And let's be real, the bias isn't even subtle anymore. It's loud, proud, and front and center. If Trump breathes wrong, it's a scandal. If Biden forgets what planet he's on, It's just Tuesday. This isn't journalism. It's political propaganda, dressed up as news.
Well, apparently you can fire them, but you have to give them 30 days notice. Oh, so that's what we're upset about? No! You can do it, but not in that font!
So what was all the outrage really about? The law clearly states that the president has the authority to fire any or all inspectors general, as long as a 30-day notice is given. Trump followed that law to the letter. Yet the media acted like he staged a coup. It was a textbook case of manufactured outrage. This relentless, bad faith framing is exactly why the Trump campaign turned its back on legacy media and embraced independent and alternative outlets. And who could blame them? They were sick of the nonstop distortions, the hit pieces, and the blatant bias masquerading as journalism. Instead of fair reporting, they got partisan hysteria. So, they went around the gatekeepers, straight to the people. In this era of information warfare, that wasn't just smart, it was necessary. At the end of the day, the media's obsession with smearing Trump while shielding Biden has come at a cost. Public trust. The double standards, the selective outrage, the gaslighting, it's all been exposed. And Americans are waking up. They're tuning out the narrative and turning toward voices that speak the truth. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content that cuts through the noise and delivers the facts without the filter.